Hi, everybody. Welcome to Making the Grade. I'm Michelle Edmonds from Idaho News 6. So nice to have you joining us this morning. Whether you're at work or at home working or being a working parent trying to manage children who are doing hybrid school or online school, we really want to hear from you today. We want to hear about your thoughts, your struggles when it comes to education, and specifically as we dive into COVID-19 and a schools update. Here to talk with me, as always, my partner in crime, Kevin Richert from Idaho Education News. Hi, Kevin. Are you healthy? Are you well?
I'm good, Michelle. I'm feeling all right. How are you doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. Doing some online hybrid learning today. So if you
Yes.
hear extra noises, that's because there are a bunch of people on devices inside my house right now.
It's
So
a
just let
home day.
everybody
It's
know.
not an in-school day. It's a home day.
That's correct. It's a
All right.
home day for all of us. Well, let's do a whole kind of update on COVID-19 and schools. We have so much to get to. And again,
Yeah,
Kevin,
we do.
asking people to join us with what they're seeing in their own schools, what their thoughts are when it comes to their own children, what's working, what's not. We really want this to be a place where people can learn from one another. So let us start maybe with the fact that health and welfare has put out, maybe finally, a lot of people would say, a breakdown of schools and what is happening with coronavirus cases inside the schools themselves. And the first one was published the end of last week, correct?
We're 2 weeks into this, Michelle. So we've had 2 weeks worth of data from health and welfare. And what we're getting is some school level data on cases in the K-12 system. Now, these may be students, these may be staff, they don't differentiate. And we're not going to get numbers for the smallest schools in the state because of student privacy issues. But 2 weeks in, we're starting to at least get a little bit of a research baseline. And one of the things we saw when the numbers came out on Friday, more cases in the K-12 system last week than in that first week, more than 100 cases in the schools. And I have to say at least 103 cases because we don't have a hard figure here. We only have a minimum. But the case numbers doubled from last week, from the previous week to last week. So we'll get a new round of numbers on Friday. But, you know, doubling the numbers is obviously not a good trend. So we'll watch and see what we get next week. And we get a little bit of a sense of maybe where some of the hot spots are. And, not really too many surprises here. Some areas that we know have had issues with outbreaks in the schools. North Star Charter and Eagle being an example. They've had 30 cases so far this school year. Some of the other hotspots that we've seen, like Emmett High School, Payette. So it reinforces some of what we already knew was going on there. But it's it's another data point that we as reporters can use. And more importantly, it's a data point that parents can use because you can search it alphabetically, look for your school name, and see what's going on.
And I think it's going to be important too. As you said, we've only had 2 weeks worth of data on this, Kevin. So to move forward, as more kids perhaps go into classroom learning
Mhm.
and what we know of this virus and the way it spreads, I mean, there is at some point going to be spread. That's just going to happen with how this virus works. So I guess the question then becomes for administrators and school boards in particular is where's the tipping point there of, okay, it's too dangerous, and what kind of guidance are they now getting from local health departments on this?
Right. And remember that decision falls to the school boards and to, in the case of charter schools, the charter administration. Um, what you're getting from the health districts and what you're getting even from the White House, and I know we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But those are recommendations, those are guidelines, those are observations. But the ultimate decision is going to fall with the school officials. And you're right, we don't really know where that tipping point is, except that I'm sure that varies from school to school and from administration to administration, from community to community. So we're already seeing that unfold, and we're only a few weeks into the school year.
Adam has an interesting question for us, Kevin. I don't know if you can answer this directly, but he's asking, how is this data collected? And this is again done at the state level, we should mention, not necessarily at the district health level. So a little bit different there, and I want to make sure people understand where this is coming from.
Looks like they're getting it from a variety of sources, Adam. They say that they're getting some of it from the schools themselves. They're getting it maybe from health officials. They're also getting some of the data from media reports. So it's a variety of sources. And as I say, it's not a complete accounting of everything that's going on in the schools. What it does provide us and what it provides you as a parent is maybe a way to check and see, are we having an outbreak in our community? Are we in the middle of an outbreak? Are we a hot spot within the state? And you can scroll down, you see a lot of blank spots, but as you scroll down, you'll also see some cases. Bonneville High School, we just scrolled by, has had 13 cases so far this year, but no new cases over the past couple of weeks. So that would suggest that they had an outbreak earlier in the year and that it's kind of petered out. But as we scroll down, now we're seeing.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you a little bit. I apologize for that. But as we're scrolling through this, I mean, what I do notice as a parent, though, is that there are an awful lot of hash marks here.
There are a lot of hash marks.
So this is not necessarily a compiling of, this is only what they know has happened. Let's just make that clear as well, because when you see all those hash marks, the chances that there are asymptomatic kids in the school is, of course, extremely high. But this is what they know. This is what they know.
These are the case results that they have, positive case results with students and with staff combined. You can see, yes, you can see a lot of hash marks, and that means that either they don't have any reports of any cases or they've not had any cases at all. So you see Emmett High School, we've already talked about them. 3 more cases in the past week, 15 so far this school year. We knew Emmett was having some issues. We knew that Emmett had an outbreak. We've been talking about that before. Fruitland High School, you can see 21 cases so far this school year, 8 at Fruitland Middle School.
Let's talk a little bit as you're continue to scroll through this. It's just fascinating. First of all, Kevin, before we jump off of this document in particular, if people want to find this, is it easy to find?
It's easy to find if you know where to look. No, the state has a coronavirus web page, and I want to say it's coronavirus.idaho.gov. And from there, you have to know where you're going. There's a section for schools. You'll see a heading along the top of the page. You have to click onto the schools link, and that will take you there. Or there we go. We put a link in the comments section. We'll also link to this every week. I write a blog every Friday afternoon, which looks at the statewide coronavirus trends. I write that at idahoegnews.org. As it turns out, the state is going to be updating this report every Friday, so we'll have those numbers on Friday afternoon. It'll be part of my blog on Friday evening, and I'll embed a link to the weekly report there. So there are a couple ways to find it.
Okay, we just want to make sure people have this direct access, because this is what parents can look at themselves, make up their own minds about what's happening in their individual schools.
Right. And if you're a concerned parent, look on the page so you can check in weekly. And Friday afternoon is when they're supposed to be updating this page.
Thanks, Kevin. Central District Health is meeting this evening, and we've already had a bit of a preview from Central District Health, which manages Ada County schools, I should mention, about what they could possibly do with their color-coded school system, meaning green, yellow, red. We have been in Ada County in the yellow category, meaning that Central District Health has said and suggested that there can be some hybrid learning during that. But there is a chance that they could be moving Ada County back to red as of this evening. And we already had a preview of that with the Boise School District and what they've decided to do.
Yes, so the Boise School Board met on Friday in anticipation of what we expect Central District Health to do. Every indication is that Central District Health will move Ada County schools into that red risk category, that highest risk category. Now, if you're wondering, what does that mean and how is that going to affect schools in Boise? It's not going to have that immediate an effect, Michelle. What the Boise School Board agreed to do on Friday was to continue with this hybrid learning model. And we've talked about this in the past. And just to recap, the Boise schools are gradually moving kids back into school part-time on an every other day schedule, starting with elementary school kids who have been going in some cases now for a couple of weeks, gradually trying to move into middle school and high school in the weeks to come. That's going to continue. So you're going to still have hybrid learning in Boise based on the decision the board made on Friday, a decision that Central District Health supported. Now, the only big difference that we know of with Boise is Boise had been talking about trying to get 100% open, have kids back in school full-time perhaps in November. That doesn't appear to be likely at this point. That appears to be on hold. So hybrid learning perhaps for the foreseeable future.
We also know that the state's largest district, West Ada, the school board plans to meet this evening as well to review recommendations from Central District Health. Lots of people wondering what will happen in that district.
Yes, us too. Who will be keeping an eye to see what happens with West Ada. To recap, and parents already know this, West Ada has been in this process of trying to gradually move kids back into school full-time, and they're doing that at the grade school level right now. We'll see where they go with this. And, again, what the health district recommends is not binding. A school district can decide to do something different than what the health district has recommended. In Boise's case, they went along with a plan and presented a plan that the health district did sign on to. That's not required. A school district can go any way that they decide to. So we'll keep a close eye on West Ada tonight and see what happens there.
What's fascinating about all this too, Kevin, is that this is coming at a time where the White House itself, the task force for the coronavirus task force from the White House, has recommended that some Idaho schools go completely virtual. And Ada County was one of the counties that the White House suggested go virtual. So the White House is saying one thing to Idaho's governor and task force for coronavirus. Central District Health is saying another. And now school board trustees will have to figure out what to do with all of this. So tell me a little bit about the White House coronavirus task force and its recommendations. And maybe perhaps we should talk and get feedback from viewers on what they think about the White House task force recommendations.
Yes, this was significant. The task force recommendations suggested that you have coronavirus spread in several Idaho counties. It's simply too high to support continued face-to-face learning. So this task force, this White House task force, recommending a move to online learning, making similar recommendations also at the higher education level, and I will get to that here in a minute. But again, everything that the White House recommends or everything that the health districts recommend, they're recommendations. These are very local decisions. They're being made at the school board level, and we're already seeing how sensitive those issues are politically, how heated those decisions are locally. We talked about West Ada. We're waiting to see what West Ada does tonight. West Ada trustees are operating under the specter of a potential recall election, all driven by this reopening process. So, this is all happening locally. The decisions are happening locally, and the political fallout, I think, is being felt most profoundly at the local level.
It's fascinating to me how coronavirus has become so political. That's my own personal statement. When the White House is suggesting one thing, and at a state level, we're either not following those recommendations from the White House or having to make them on the local level. You're seeing the state report there from the White House itself. It puts people in a pretty difficult spot, especially when it comes back to the Board of Trustees and the health departments and who really has control, which is where I'm getting at for this politically, Kevin, that all of this will come to a head, I believe, as you and I have reported, with the legislature come January, correct?
It will definitely be an issue when the legislature convenes in a couple of months. There's already been concern raised by legislators who think that the health districts have too much say, have too much authority in this issue, even though they do not ultimately make the decisions about opening or closing schools. There's a concern that a number of legislators have voiced about how much influence are we putting in the hands of, the districts and the district staff. And, even though these districts are governed by elected officials, mostly county commissioners, there's a concern that the health district officials have too much of a say over the decisions that are being made at the school level.
Let's talk a little bit about the college campuses across the state, because you are keeping a very close eye on what's happening on college campuses. Specifically, though, an interesting story coming out of BYU, Idaho, where the BYU, Idaho administrators are literally threatening suspending students. Tell us what this is over, Kevin.
This is a bizarre story that broke last night, Monday night. BYU Idaho posted a memo on its webpage, also on social media channels. I think they also emailed it to students, saying that they've heard reports that students are deliberately contracting the coronavirus in an attempt to become coronavirus positive and sell their plasma for more money than they would receive for plasma normally, because their plasma would contain the coronavirus antibodies. It's a bizarre story, and we don't have a whole lot more details about it than the fact that BYU Idaho has issued this warning and issued this admonishment to students that deliberately contracting the virus is a very serious matter to the university, which is trying to stay open, and a university that has already said that there's a real possibility that they may have to go online. So this is it's a developing story. We don't know the extent to which this may be occurring. We don't know if this is, if there's concrete evidence of this occurring, or that the university is just hearing reports of it, speculation that it may be happening, and they're trying to get out ahead of it before it actually does occur. But we do know this much about Madison County, and we do know this much about BYU Idaho. The case numbers have been increasing sharply on campus and in Madison County. Madison County has probably the highest increase in coronavirus cases over the past couple of weeks. Well, not probably, they definitely do, because I track these things. Madison County is the hotspot of all hotspots in Idaho for coronavirus spread, and a lot of that is centered on the BYU Idaho campus. I believe they're looking at more than 100 active cases involving students at this point, and that number continues to increase.
And there's been a bit of good news, though, as we're looking at college campuses across the state, though, because not all numbers for coronavirus are on the rise. And I found that very encouraging, especially considering Boise State.
Boise State reported some lower numbers last week. They do a weekly report on Fridays. The numbers did drop in terms of new cases. Also, and this is significant as well, the number of isolation beds available for students who do test positive for coronavirus. The capacity, they have more capacity to handle students who are coronavirus positive. They've added some beds, it looks like, but they've also seen fewer students needing isolation. 32 students were in isolation on Friday, 54 the previous week. So those numbers are trending in the right direction. Also, University of Idaho put out some new numbers on Monday. New case numbers dropping somewhat on the U of I campus. These numbers came out on Monday, late Monday. They still believe at the University of Idaho that the issue is centered around the sororities and the fraternity houses, that the spread is within that Greek community, within the residential Greek houses. They don't think that they're seeing transmission through classroom activities, but they have continued to allow professors the option of going online with their instruction. So a little bit of a glimmer of hope, both at Boise State and the University of Idaho, and we'll track these numbers weekly to see where the trends go. Really, for these universities, you're 6 weeks from Thanksgiving, and university officials, if they don't have a calendar on their desk that they're checking off days, they probably have a calendar in their head where they're checking off days, because Boise State and University of Idaho, and I'll add Idaho State to this, are planning to move to an online instructional model after the Thanksgiving break. They'll round out the fall semester online. Students will not have to return to campus after Thanksgiving. The idea is to avoid students coming back from Thanksgiving break, potentially with the coronavirus, potentially spreading it to other students. You know, the colleges and universities right now, they're just trying to get through to Thanksgiving and keep face-to-face learning for these final 6 weeks of the fall semester, and then go to the online model as planned. So, you know, it's kind of a race against time, and it's a race against the virus. So any kind of trend where case numbers are decreasing is an encouraging trend.
We're getting a lot of different comments from people, and we appreciate everyone joining us here on Making the Grade. Kevin Richert joining me with Idaho Education News. Let's circle back around a little bit, Kevin,
Sure.
and talk once again about the decision coming from Central District Health this evening. They signaled on Friday as they put out a one sheet, you might call it, suggesting that Ada County will be moving back into the red category for schools. This is that one sheet they sent out. This is why we believe this is where they will vote to go tonight. My question then becomes, and I know this is pie in the sky, so bear with me because I know you don't have these kinds of answers, but for parents out there who are frustrated that maybe the rules are changing on them, and whether that is changing for what they consider to be the best or not the best, are the rules changing when it comes to the school districts? And should there be more perhaps than just 3 categories of green, yellow, red? Because red doesn't necessarily mean red anymore. And I get that it can be super confusing.
It really is confusing, and it's confusing for us, and it's complicated for us as reporters to try to put this all into perspective, because not only are the rules and the guidelines changing school to school, community to community, what is a red designation in one community and an orange designation, and what that means varies from community to community. We talked about Madison County. Health officials there did move Madison County into the orange category last week, but then they also made changes in what that means, and made changes in terms of, you know, what sort of guidelines or what sort of restrictions come with an orange designation. So, you know, these categories, these colors don't even mean the same thing when you look across 7 different health districts across the state. This is really evolving before our eyes, and really evolving in real time, and even just what we saw with Central District Health last week. You know, in the summer, the Central District Health talked about having a red guideline that would mean that the health district would not recommend any kind of face-to-face learning, that the health district would recommend online only. Well, now we're in a red, or we seem to be heading into the red category in Ada County, but Central District Health is saying, we think you can do some hybrid learning in the Boise district. And what the health district says is that they've looked at the spread within Ada County, and there is a spread, but they don't believe that it's tied to the schools in Boise. They don't think it's tied to the K-12 system in Boise. So they're giving blessing to hybrid learning in Boise, where maybe a few weeks ago they might not have. So yes, it's evolving, and it's confusing. And I can sympathize with parents as they try to navigate this, because we're trying to navigate it ourselves as reporters. It's changing rapidly. It's changing, you know, all over the state, and these designations mean different things in different communities.
Dana's asking us, Kevin, what about Twin Falls? And I'm guessing she's asking about Twin Falls numbers in their caseload. Am I correct? Did they originally have a bit of an outbreak?
They've been, yes, they've had, you know, they had a pretty serious outbreak back in the spring, even before Ada County saw its spike in the summer. Twin Falls had problems in the spring. They've had a pretty significant uptick in cases in Twin Falls just in the past couple of weeks. And I want to say, I don't know all the details. I think Twin Falls is looking at going into the orange category, and the schools are looking at some restrictions. I don't know the details about that. You'd have to check locally. But yes, Twin Falls has been a problem area.
And again, we are putting up the coronavirus.idaho.gov page because this is where you can go and find out directly your school and what the numbers are in your school in terms of the caseload. There was another question I wanted to get here too. Joanne was asking us, are the COVID cases increasing at Idaho State University?
Yes, they are. Numbers went up last week as opposed to the previous week. Their numbers are not as high as we've seen at Boise State, which has considerably higher enrollment. They're not as high as the numbers at University of Idaho either, but yes, their numbers did go up in the past week, and most of it involves students, and most of it involves the main campus at Pocatello.
Oh, Kevin, just trying to keep up to date with everything that's happening is overwhelming. And I think about the school board trustees and the fact that most of them were voted into position before something called COVID-19 was even in existence. So, no matter what you're thinking about your local school district, you have to admire people who are trying to figure this out, even if you don't agree with them. That the fact that they're working for all of us, trying to figure it out and trying to do the best, hopefully, for our children.
Yes, and school trustees, it's an unpaid position. These folks are volunteers. They're elected, but they are volunteers. Goes without saying that nobody's in it for the money.
Isn't that true? Okay, because we have to end on a happy, fun note. We have retitled our last little segment because we figure if elementary students have to be online and doing their show and tells, then Kevin and I, who don't get to see each other in person anymore, and it's crazy to me that we've been this long without seeing each other in person.
I know.
But we've decided to call this Kevin's show and tell, so that he's got something new that I can relate to and laugh about, which is just fun.
Yeah, so you can see the wall behind me. It's all my finisher swag, all of my medals and stuff. So we don't race face to face anymore because, for obvious reasons, they don't want crowds of runners together. So every race is virtual, and what that also means is that we get to do some really different things. Like I did one a couple of weeks ago, and finally got the swag a few days ago. This was a relay race, 24-hour relay race. Everybody got to do 1 hour, signing up for teams representing national parks or national monuments. So I signed up for the Craters of the Moon team, and I think I was the only Idahoan who was actually running on that team. It was a bunch of folks from all over the country. So the swag came in, and because it was a relay race, it's a baton, as you can see. And what I really love about the baton is, the detail, all these little, the detailed drawings. I'm trying to get us. So here we go. I can point now to Idaho. Here we go. So you've got the Idaho air. You've got Yellowstone. You got some geyser. You've got a potato, of course. You got some camping. You got some whitewater. It captures. It captures Idaho. It's pretty cool, and it's a baton. I don't know what I'll ever use it for.
You can pass it off.
It's a nice thing to have. You just never know. You never know when a baton may come in handy. But this one's a cool one.
Okay.
I like it.
That's really neat. And I have to admit, so you specifically were the only person signed up to run at Craters, even though you didn't run at Craters.
I did not run at Craters. So these runners from all over the country just signed on to various teams representing parks and national monuments. When it was time for me to sign up, I saw the Craters was there. I was like, oh, okay, that's, I feel like I can represent Craters. I haven't been there in a long time, but it's really cool, obviously. And it's Idaho. And as I signed up, I looked at everybody else on the team, and they're like from Colorado and Arizona and California and Maryland. It's like, well, I guess somebody from Idaho is running on behalf of Craters. And it was a lot of fun. We were able to get to know each other a little bit via text and via social media on race day. So we were kind of tracking how we were doing. I got to run at about sunset. My hour was 7 p.m., which it was a beautiful evening. That it was a couple of Saturdays ago, so I got to run into the sunset, and I got to turn around and see the moon rise, which felt kind of right if you're representing craters of the moon, to see the moon coming over the foothills. It was fun, and it's fun. I
I love
I
it.
hope we do it again. I think this is a cool one. So even when we can do real racing, hope we do virtuals
Here's
like
to the
that.
baton.
Yes.
All right. Well, we pass the baton off on to all you parents who are dealing with the craziness of coronavirus and hoping that everybody can just stay safe and that we can get our kids back in schools.
Yes.
Kevin, thanks for being here, for making the grade. Nice baton.
Thank you. Have a good week.